Hi, I'm Christina Richardson, and this is my district improvement plan for my Key Assessment Part 2 for EDSI 9942. I propose that the Polk School District uses systems thinking, an approach to a strategic school improvement initiative where we can focus on all students. I believe all students can learn. Uh, Through systems thinking, where there's a focus on a few small number of key priorities. There's a focus on resolute leadership, where we ensure that leaders stay on message, which means we are all focused on the same message. And there's a collective capacity within the school system and within each school. There are strategies with precision, and we use intelligent accountability measures, and we really mean that all means all when we talk about student uh, improvement. Um, the systems thinking approach is from researcher and educator Michael Fullen, and he explains that through all means all, you can't solve whole system reform through piecemeal efforts that try to get parts of the system improving in order to show the way. System reform does not and cannot work that way. So for Polk School District, this means that we would improve education outcomes for all students, focus on all students, continuous improvement for all students, and narrow the gap between the lowest and highest achieving students, and then move all students forward. Looking at the Polk School District demographics, we have a student enrollment of 7,550, and when we look at our subgroups, we have 43% of our students are economically disadvantaged, 14% are students with disabilities, and 11% are English language learners. Here is a sampling of our elementary data dig when we looked at academic achievement for students in kindergarten through fifth grade. You can see that our elementary literacy and elementary numeracy uh, averages for um, the milestones assessments were slightly below the average for proficient and distinguished learners, below the state levels in both areas. You can see our middle school data shows that we're below average in our eighth grade Lexile scores, below average of the state. And in our milestones assessments, we're also below the state average in the proficient and distinguished categories for English and mathematics. For our high school data, I included a sampling of the milestones assessments from American literature and from algebra. So in American literature, you can see that we're still slightly below the state averages in proficient and distinguished learners. And then in algebra, we're actually slightly higher than the state average. But when you look at our graduation rates for 2021, you can see the two high schools are have a wide separation there in their graduation rate, where Rockmart High School is 96% and Cedartown High School is at 81%, giving us an overall uh, graduation rate for Polk School District at 87.5%. You can also see that we have 59.3% of graduates are college and career ready, meaning that they're exiting high school with the requirements they need to either enter college or pursue a career. This is a view of the state dashboard for data where we can disaggregate the data based off of subgroups. This is looking at our English language arts for high schools for Polk School District, and you can see that our students met much of their targets for this school year, where they were showing growth in many areas. But you can also see that our English language learners um, are a subgroup that made progress but did not meet the improvement target. In the area of mathematics, again, our English language learners, this time it shows that they did not make progress and did not meet the improvement target. When looking at the achievement levels of our subgroups, there were some areas that stood out where our English language learners showed 0% proficient and distinguished, and our students with disabilities showed a minimal proficient area of 9.64%, and there were no distinguished learners in this subcategory. When I calculated the data to determine our proficient distinguished learners in each of our subgroups, I noticed that our English learners and our students with disabilities were showing large gaps between all students' performance and these subcategories. But I also um, saw that our Black and our Hispanic students were also showing very moderate gaps in where our students or all of our students are performing and where they are performing. To summarize the data, once we really took a look at all of the data, we saw that not only were our achievement levels showing those areas of need, but also our climate and our social emotional evaluation of how our students are adjusting after or during the pandemic and after the pandemic, if you can say that we're after the pandemic yet. But there are some priorities that need immediate attention, and we can narrow those to just a few. There are significant gaps between the highest achieving students and our lowest achieving students, which are identified in those specific subgroups, the SWD and ELL. Those really together, if you remember back to our demographics, those really make up about the 20% um, of our student population. We saw a specific need in high schools, but there needs to be a district-wide push to increase the area's academic achievement in numeracy and literacy to target that lowest 20%. There are significant differences in the school climate rankings between the schools, especially elementary schools. We have a need for district-wide focus to improve school climate. And then about half of our students are in that economically disadvantaged category, and those students through research show that they are the most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we need additional mental health focus in the district to make sure we're supporting those students and all students. When looking at school improvement, We need to think ahead. We need to make sure that we remember that improving outcomes for students is reliant on increasing the quality of instruction. There is a need for collective efficacy when we are talking about improving outcomes of students. Teachers, faculty, administrators, district leaders, we have to believe that we make the most impact for our students. And we have to know that impact. We have to believe that regardless of what barriers that may lie in their path that are environmental or beyond our control, that we as teachers can impact those students' lives more than anything else. But we have to work together. Leaders have to lead the way. It is critical that our leaders focus on instruction and emphasize that if we don't improve our instruction, our student outcomes cannot improve. We can do this through strategic improvement plans. With a strategic improvement plan, it's a district-wide plan that's 3 to 5 years, and we make sure that there's an alignment from the board to the central office to the school plans that all merge into one centralized focus on those few key priorities that we talked about. And we can monitor that progress, use dashboards, presentations, annual reports. We want to make sure that we provide appropriate, coordinated, and frequent training and coaching. We evaluate the process and the outcomes. We utilize evaluation results to improve processes. We involve stakeholders in the selection and evaluation of initiatives, and we ensure resources are allocated and policies support the implementation. So to do this, we want to make sure that our improvement plan has metrics that reflect the extent to which the goal or objective has been implemented. We want to make sure we show actions, the specific set of actions that need to be used to accomplish the objectives. We want to make sure that those objectives are clearly defined and that they're measurable. We want to make sure we assign the responsible people that are going to actually be held accountable and are going to execute the specific actions in the plan. We want to make sure there's a timeline in this plan, that we know when the actions begin and when they end, and include any other relevant milestones that we're going to take progress from or that we want to see progress by. And then we want to make sure our resources are allocated that to support the actions and that make sure that we can complete those actions with the resources available. When we consider that collective efficacy piece where we all believe that we make that the most impact, collective efficacy doesn't just happen naturally. Um, Throughout the whole district and out through every school. But we want to make sure that we are building collective efficacy. We can train our school leaders to be instructional leaders. We can provide guidance on how to build in time for collaborative discussions. We can provide professional learning on facilitating discussions and investigative dialogue about the correlations between instructional practices and student progress. And we can provide professional learning and growth mindset to make sure that teachers are empowered with those instructional strategies and that they are growing as educators and teacher leaders um, to improve their practice every day to ultimately improve student outcomes. You can see here some of the research shows that engaging in collaborative discussions that allow teachers to discuss and investigate correlations between instructional practices and student progress are part of building that collective efficacy. You can see that leaders can foster a collective environment at the district and school levels when they develop their instructional skills and knowledge. So those leaders need to continue to improve their own skills as they grow as instructional leaders. And then leaders must guide teachers through constructive feedback and empower them with the skills and involve them in the decision making processes at the school. We want to build leadership capacity in our district as well. We can use Mondays as professional learning days because we're on a 4-day student school week. We can hire a professional learning director. We can develop an aspiring leaders program and then make sure we're evaluating that program uh, to make sure that it's effective and it's continuously effective. So you can again see some research here that supports building leadership capacity. School districts can integrate individual and collective capacity through alignment of the personnel policies and practices with the instructional focus and in the hiring and development of teachers, selection and cultivation of leaders, potential future school leaders, beginning and continuing assistant principals and principals. You can see school leaders can foster and grow teacher leader skills by empowering them to make effective instructional decisions and allowing them to participate in decision-making procedures for the school. School districts can foster leadership capacity, building through school leadership teams, collaborating with schools throughout the district. This is all possible in Polk School District, and it needs to be that we focus on building this leadership capacity within our district. This infographic is an overview of implementing change initiatives following John Cotter's 8-step change model. However, what's really important here is the idea of how will my proposal that we use strategic planning and systems thinking to improve student outcomes, how will that address the issues that the data has shown us? And what we really need to remember is that for us to improve student outcomes, we have to reduce that variability in our teachers, and we need to increase our instructional strategies to reach our lowest achieving students. We want to make sure that we're working to improve all students' learning, but also narrow that gap between our lowest achieving and our highest achieving students. To make sure that we're gaining the support from our community and from our teachers and our board members, our leaders at Polk School District, we want to make sure that we're providing presentations and those annual reports, using dashboards to make sure that we're monitoring the progress over time of the initiatives that we implement and that we're communicating our district priorities and the progress to everyone in the community. We want to make sure they hear our message and that we have a consistent message throughout all of the district from all of our leaders and all of our teachers. In Polk School District, we believe we are better together. We know that a strategic improvement plan that has a systems thinking approach will help us focus on our collective efficacy and build our leadership capacity where all children can learn. As long as we stay focused on that small number of key priorities, have resolute leadership, stay on message, have collective capacity, where we're improving our strategies with precision and our We have intelligent accountability and we focus on all means all.